Tonight, murder on the streets of Paris. Is it time now to let the spooks spy on us properly? This is Party People. Yes, a warm welcome to Party People. Later in the programme, we report from the Oldham West and Royton by-election. Is Mr Corbyn ready for the battle ahead? But first tonight, all the words, all the tears and all the emotions have already been shed and spoken as all of us reel from the horrors of the Paris massacres. David Cameron now talks of a full spectrum response. He wants the RAF to strike Syria and the intelligence services to monitor our communications. But is the Prime Minister right in that response? Joining me in the studio tonight is the Conservative MP for Rossendale and Darwin, Jake Berry. I'm also joined by Paul Nuttall, the UKIP MEP for the North West of England and the Deputy Leader of his party. The former Leader of Liverpool City Council and now a Liberal Democrat peer, Lord Mike Story, is with me. And I'm also joined by Jonathan Reynolds, a Labour MP for Stalybridge and Hyde and the Shadow Transport Minister. All of you, welcome to the programme. There's nobody in this studio, nobody on this couch, there's hopefully nobody watching this programme who wouldn't join us in condemning what happened in Paris. So let's move to the key issues about what happens now and about keeping the region and the country safe. Paul Nuttall, let me begin with you. What happened in Paris on Friday the 13th, has that changed in your mind the EU referendum in Britain?
Well, I think security will have to be a part of it. I think what happened in Paris proves that borderless Europe just doesn't work. The Schengen Agreement should simply be ripped up. We need to ensure...
Which we're not members of.
We're not members of Schengen, but the fact that Schengen is in place and some of these people have travelled freely from Belgium into France unchecked. Some of them have travelled right the way through Europe to get to Paris to cause this atrocity. It just simply proves that whilst we have borderless Europe, we're not safe.
We've heard something similar from Marine Le Pen, the French National Front leader. Isn't this something that you're just now going to jump on and use for electoral political party purposes?
Look, Rob, I warned that this would happen 6 weeks ago in the European Parliament.
What, a massacre in Paris?
I spoke about the fact that freedom of movement of peoples within Europe during this migration crisis could end up being freedom of movement of jihad. And it's exactly what happened.
We don't know for certain what happened. We don't know that for certain.
Well, we know that...
We know a passport was found, but we don't know whether that was a genuine passport.
Well, equally, we know via Schengen, actually, a number of them have crossed from Brussels over the Belgian-French border into Paris and caused these atrocities.
Jonathan, do you agree? Because that analysis is going to carry a lot of weight with a lot of people, isn't it?
No, I don't agree. And I think, let's be clear, whatever arrangements there are between countries like France and Belgium, there'll always be a lot of people passing, often, between France and Belgium. We're not part of Schengen. That's not really part of the conversation. And if we look at the real problem here, what we're really fighting, Paul, look, when we had the 7/7 bombings, where did those people come from? They came from Leeds, they came from Luton. Let's not pretend this is about foreigners. Let's not pretend it's as simple as saying, oh, look, it's the EU to blame again. It's much more complicated than that. And if we don't respond properly, then we'll not defeat this. That's absolutely clear.
In terms of response, Jake, I mean, you're working with the Treasury team now in government, and obviously there's a big announcement next Wednesday from the Chancellor, the Comprehensive Spending Review. We have, on this programme, we've covered, claims that we could see the police force, Greater Manchester, one of the biggest in the country, reduced to 4,500 officers. Big reductions in Lancashire, your area. There could be reductions in Merseyside. The Met could lose, it's reported, up to 8,000. Is that going to stop now next week? Is the Chancellor not going to allow those police cuts to happen?
What we've seen, actually, not next week, but this week just gone, is announcements around beefing up GCHQ, MI6 and MI5, which is actually the best way of tackling terrorism. The police terrorism funding has been ring-fenced, and the Prime Minister at Prime Minister's questions... Well, I'll come on to it. The Prime Minister at Prime Minister's questions reaffirmed that commitment to police...
But he wouldn't answer Jeremy Corbyn's direct question about neighbourhood policing.
Well, neighbourhood police officers have their role to play in terms of passing intelligence back and having those really good relationships with people in the community. But actually, the way that we will tackle this is through high-level counter-terrorism policing. Now, there's going to be a tough settlement for police forces.
So the answer to my question, because you won't answer it, so the answer to my question is,
if you give me the opportunity to answer it, I will with the greatest
those
of
cuts
pleasure.
are going to continue. Is that right?
Police are going to. There is going to be a reducing budget for police forces, but we have seen over the last 5 years that even though police budgets have gone down by 30%, we've seen a reduction in crime. We've seen police officers doing more for less.
But Jake, at the moment we're receiving reports. You know, the Sunday Times had it on the front page on Sunday that the SAS have moved closer to London since the Mumbai massacre. We've had units that have been around other cities. I'm talking about army response units, etc. If those stories are true, is this really the moment to be cutting police?
Well, you're conflating the sort of counter-terrorism response of police force, which is ring-fenced, should be ring-fenced. I'm delighted that the Prime Minister has reaffirmed his commitment to that, to the general policing budget. We have to pay. We were elected just 6 months ago on a manifesto which says we will run a surplus within this Parliament. The police officers have to play their part in cutting public spending.
I think people out there, it beggars belief. I mean, people want to be safe in their houses, they want to be safe in their communities, and one of the ways of being safe is by ensuring that there are sufficient police officers, never mind all the other provisions that are going to be rightly made. They want actually on the streets to feel safe.
So you think this is a dangerous move that the Conservatives may do?
And I think the Conservatives themselves recognise that. I was at Prime Minister's Question Time up in the gallery, and I thought the Prime Minister gave himself a way out of the cuts on police force. He kept saying, well, actually, during the course of the previous coalition government, we've increased the number of neighbourhood police officers by 3,000, and we want to make sure there are sufficient police officers on the ground. So I think there is wriggle room here.
And the proposal cuts are so severe, I think
So one at a time.
The levels of reductions, if they do follow through, and we've covered this on this programme before, but you've asked me about this, are so severe for a place like Greater Manchester, possibly going down to 4,000 police officers. I think that's too much for Conservatives. I just don't think they'll vote for that.
Do you know what? If you want the country to be safe, tackle it from the other end as well. Let's stop the Saudis funding mosques in this country. Let's stop the Saudis putting in imams. Let's stop the Saudis funding madrasas and university courses, because that's where this thing begins.
Well, there is no real evidence. There is no real evidence to support that, is there? There's no real evidence that actually what happened in Paris is a direct result of anything.
It's linked to Wahhabism. That's what it's linked to.
But there is no direct
link. And Saudis fund that around the world.
But there is no direct link to any of that being extremism that may be taught in anywhere in the United Kingdom, is there? There's no evidence.
The Austrians have just banned Saudi money funding mosques. Other countries in Europe are going to go down that line. If we don't catch up, something like this.
But isn't that just blaming the minority? Didn't we have that with the Irish?
But let's come back to security, and let's deal with Paul's previous point. I don't seem to recall when we had the Warrington bombings and the bombings in Manchester. The border then didn't stop terrorists. The border then didn't stop terrorists. Terrorists will move wherever they want to. And what we have, can I just finish what I'm saying? And what we have to do is make sure that people are safe through a whole range of reasons. But Mike, not trying to blame other people.
Mike, let me move to some of the other solutions here as well that's being discussed. First of all, there could be a vote on Syria, bombing of Syria. Who in this room would support the bombing of Syria now?
Well, what we have to see is the Prime Minister has said to the House of Commons he's going to come forward with the case for bombing Syria. Would you support it? Well, look, I will be likely, I think, to support it if the Prime Minister comes out and make the case. My own personal preference is that we look at a route through the United Nations. There was great progress this week where Russia signed the Vienna Accord about saying we should seek a united NATO settlement. That's the preferred route.
Very quickly,
let's see what
Paul, yes or no? Would you support it?
Yes, if we only focus on ISIS and if it's a global coalition.
Mike?
It's not a yes or no answer. I agree with what Jake said.
You can't answer yes or no. The problem is it's choosing between the lesser of two evils in Syria. And the last vote on bombing Syria was to bomb the people fighting ISIS. So it is a much more complicated question.
People who we're talking about fighting with now, we were going to bomb a few months ago.
That is my
It's a complicated dynamic.
You guys wanted to arm them. If you guys would have got your way in 2013, ISIS would be killing people now using British weapons. And that's how mad it is.
I seem to recall that Liberal Democrats were the only party who actually opposed the action in Iraq, but never mind.
But I think the one thing we could do, the one thing I think maybe everyone would agree on, is we should be giving more support to the Kurdish Peshmerga fighters who are the front
and the
line
Syrian
against
Free
ISIS.
Army, which are making huge success.
Mike, your party traditionally, as Liberal Party, has opposed giving more powers to the spooks. Nick Clegg stopped this in terms of spying on our communications. The Data Communications Bill is going through, which will allow, all emails to be held for a period, etc., and everything we use in terms of online. Has your view now changed as a party after the Paris massacre?
I think anybody watching this programme, anybody in our country wants to feel safe, and we've come to a stage where they'll do whatever it takes for us to be safe. And I think we will have to change the way of the spooks, as you put it, watch what we're doing. But I think it has to be in the hands of judges and not politicians.
And Jonathan, what is your position on this now?
It's not about the powers. We all acknowledge that security forces have a lot of powers at the minute and they probably need more, but it is about the judicial oversight of those powers. And I think a government has nothing to fear from that. If they need those powers in place, then make sure the oversight's there as well, and that's our position on the matter.
And Paul, would you have one member in the House of Commons, but would you support, is UKIP supporting this?
If the security services tell us that that's what they need to keep us safe, then absolutely.
And would you like to see that combined with no cuts to the police?
I don't think it makes sense cutting the police budget, especially when we send 12 billion a year out in foreign aid. I'd rather spend that keeping our own people safe.
Jay, you are PPS, Parliamentary Private Secretary to the Chief Secretary of the Treasury. Are you going to take this message back from party people? This is what they're saying?
Well, none of us know at this stage what the police budget will be. We won't have long to wait. We can find out on Wednesday, but I think it's absolutely vital that we send a message out there that whatever the financial settlement is, that MPs are behind our police force. I come from a police family. My grandfather was a policeman in Bootle during the war, and whatever the budget is, we've got to concentrate all of that money on frontline policing and keeping the police safe. And that's the message I would take back.
For the moment, stay with me, because next on the programme, Michael Meacher was, of course, according to Gordon Brown, quote, a prodigious writer, a talented speaker, and a reforming government minister. His sudden death has robbed Jeremy Corbyn of a strong left-wing supporter. It now presents the new Labour leader with his first electoral challenge. That's on the 3rd of December. It's the by-election, of course, and surely Labour will romp home with its 2015 majority of some 14,738 in Oldham West and Royton. And that was, by the way, Michael's highest majority since 1997. Well, not if Labour's opponents have their way.
Okay, the Oldham West by-election, we see this, the bookies see this as a two-horse race. It's either Labour, they're hot favourites. 1 to 16 favourites here.
I'm a local candidate, I'm of the town, my sons go to school here. I was the council leader, I'm the council leader. I do think that people now feel betrayed by the Tory government. The Tories went to the election with a manifesto that they're now departing from, and I think what they're doing on tax credits really affects people in Oldham.
The only challenges we see realistically are UKIP. They were 8-1 this morning. Now only 7-1 UKIP is going to be throwing everything at this seat.
In by-elections, the gloves come off, and this is going to be a test about whether the Labour Party, under the leadership of a group of Marxists, is actually the right thing for this country. I mean, I think most Labour voters would actually be very worried about Jeremy Corbyn being Prime Minister.
Now, if you think there is going to be a shock in this by-election, perhaps the Tories. They came a very narrow third last time, just behind UKIP. But it's very, very unusual for governing parties to win by-elections like this. We're putting them in at 66-1.
20,000 people have had a tax cut in this constituency. 2,000 people have been taken out of tax altogether. We have put forward a range of measures since 2010 to help working people. We're going out there, knocking on every door, speaking to everybody, making sure everybody knows our message. We're the people here with the positive message that's responding to local concerns.
We're going to fight this dead seriously. We're doing the best campaign we've run in a by-election for many, many years.
The Liberal Democrats, well, they used to be by-election kings. They only got 3% here at the general election. To win the whole thing, 100-1.
We can win here with Tim Farron as our new leader and with the momentum we've got. You've seen all the people here today. I think the Liberal Democrats are back in business. There's 8,000 people here who are affected by the Tory tax credit cuts, and the Liberal Democrats are the only party who stood up against Labour to say no, we don't want those cuts.
I bet you can't wait. Well, in total, there are 6 candidates, and they are on your screen right now. Still with me in the studio is Jake Berry, Paul Nuttall, Mike Story, and I'm also joined in the studio by Jonathan Reynolds. Let me first of all turn to you, Jonathan. Nobody's watching, so you're amongst friends here. Tell me, I go into my Jeremy Kyle mode now. Tell me, Jonathan, just you and I, is it miserable in the Labour Party, Parliamentary Labour Party at the moment?
It's not, and I've been in the Labour Party a long time, and there are ups and downs. It's been difficult since we lost the election, I'll be honest. You know, we had a bit of a shock when that exit poll hit us at 10 o'clock on polling day. Most of us are prepared to admit that.
But one minute you're in favour of this, 1 minute you're not in favour of this, 1 minute...
When you have a leadership contest and a new leader comes in, particularly someone who's come from outside, wasn't thought they're going to win, there's going to be some positions you had and new things the leader says. That's always...
Oh, you're being very nice.
But I tell you what, a by-election is a good place to get the party focused on campaigning again. Obviously, Oldham's next door to me. I've been there quite a bit. Great candidate from us.
I've heard some suggestion you're keeping Jeremy Corbyn away from the by-election. Is that true?
No, I went to the launch. He was there. I think he's been as much as I would expect to see any leader there. But by-elections, and everyone here knows this, are about the candidates in a big way that you put up for a local area.
And you know, you're telling me, because you're telling me honestly, nobody else is watching, but it's nice in the Parliamentary Labour Party. So when Ken Livingstone comes out and says horrible things about one of his own members, that doesn't matter?
Well, it does matter. That's not appropriate language for anyone to use, and I'm afraid other Labour MPs like myself had to come out and say, I'm afraid, Ken, that's not acceptable and you're right to apologise. And
there is a rumour that one of the shadow cabinet members might resign.
There seems to be rumours all the time that people will resign from the government front bench and from ours, but...
So my serious question, not doing my Jeremy Kyle anymore, going back to Rob McLoughlin, my serious question is, who on earth would vote for you, given all of that going on in the Labour Party?
Oh, plenty of people, and I've been talking to them in Oldham. First of all, we have a cracking candidate for that Oldham by-election. You know, Oldham is a proud place. People are proud to come from Oldham.
And you reckon you can win it?
Oh, I think we can with Jim McMahon, absolutely. He's someone completely of the town.
It's going to be tight. I think, we got 21% there in the general election. We're getting a great response on the doorsteps. And the one thing we're getting back, of course, is many people just can't vote for the party which is led by Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Now, Paul...
so you want Jeremy Corbyn to go more?
We
get a train ticket.
I'll drive him up.
But Paul, you could, let me go back into my Jeremy Kyle for a moment, because this could be an audition for me. Let me go back to Jeremy Kyle, because there's only you and I now, and we do look a bit alike. Yes. I haven't got my glasses on, but we do look a bit alike. So we look a bit like Harry Hill, don't we, together, really? But let me ask you this question. I mean, we talk about disunited parties, but who's the leader of your party now? Because didn't he resign? He was in here before the programme, before the election, and then he resigned, didn't he? Is he now back?
Well, what happened is that it went to the National Executive Committee of the party, which is directly elected by the membership, and they rejected his resignation. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Right. And then they all fell apart, and they were all accusing each other of...
Yeah, I mean, it was a difficult time, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not going to deny it. Look, do you know what? We're through it, and the good thing is this by-election has given us an opportunity to get the party back on the road in terms of a domestic fighting force. And I tell you what, we're going to shock a few people in Oldham.
Hold on, but when's this going to happen? Because I've got a list here. There was Wythenshawe, there was, of course, Hayward and Middleton.
All the same candidate as well.
There was a general election.
Been local to a few places, this fella.
You kept telling me...
He's a very good candidate.
You kept telling me there was going to be a big break.
No, I never predicted that we win Wythenshawe at all. However, I did say Hayward would be close.
You told me in a theatre in Manchester, let's be honest, you told me you were going to get 15 MPs in the last election.
I said 4.
You
had a few drinks. You had a few drinks.
Hey, I haven't had a drink. I haven't had a drink for 3.5 years. So no.
But for those of us who are gamblers, let's start talking about the outside chance, as said on that film about the Conservative Party coming through. We have an excellent candidate.
Are you going to put a bet
in James Daly? I might have a flutter because he is such a great candidate. And the only thing I would say is, whatever the result, I know James will be like Winston Churchill, who famously lost a by-election in Oldham and then came on to be the Prime Minister. So I think, for people who live in Oldham who want a real alternative, who want to vote for a government...
Winston Churchill also won an election in Oldham as well.
But, for people who want... but it was his formative election that he lost. But people who want a real alternative, go out there, support James. He is a fantastic local guy who's going to work hard for everyone.
There's 4 men on this panel. Actually, in this election, one of the candidates is a woman as well. And I think Jane, and we all say this about our candidates, but I think Jane will see a massive increase in the Lib Dem share of votes, and that's a prediction. And I'll come back, and you'll say, Rob, in December,
I
don't fancy ties or hats somehow,
No.
I'll come back and you'll say, Mike, you were right.
Well, you can double the vote and
should we have a bet on
I'll
this?
also make a prediction. I think James will
When did we first?
I think James, my prediction is I think James Daly, who is a fantastic candidate and would be a brilliant MP, and this is actually an election about who is going to be the best MP for the town, will have an extremely good result, and he is out there campaigning.
With all this Northern Powerhouse rhetoric, all of this talk about the Tories wanting to cut everyone's wages but still be the working class party, it is a test of whether the Tory vote holds up. It should hold up if they're right. It'll be interesting if that 20% will hold up or not.
It's a two-horse race. It's as simple as that. If you don't want a Labour MP, there's only one party that can beat them.
But it used to be the Lib Dems who won all the by-elections. Do you think it's going to be UKIP now?
Oh, we are on an upward trajectory when it comes to things like this.
Just remind me which by-election UKIP have now won.
Well, they had two.
We won two. We won in Clacton, we won in Clacton, and we won in Rochester.
Yes, but they were the incumbents who stood down and quickly had a by-election.
We came within 600 votes of winning Hayward and Middleton.
I think the point that Rob was making is we hear all these UKIP predictions and they never actually materialise.
Hang on, we became, in 2014, the first political party since 1906 to win a national election that wasn't Labour or the Conservatives.
But Jonathan, let me come back to you, because it's a serious point. We're having a bit of knockabout with it, but it's a serious point. A vote for Labour in Oldham in the by-election is going to be a wasted vote, isn't it? Because right now you aren't really forming an opposition.
No, absolutely not.
You've given these
guys a vote for Labour in the Oldham by-election is a vote for the best person to be your MP in Oldham West and Royton, and that is Jim McMahon.
Absolutely.
But he has done a cracking job for Oldham. He has done a cracking job. He's put some pride back into Oldham, and that will be recognised.
Take some of the money from
Hold on, one at a time.
Fails to win, that it will be the end of Jeremy Corbyn.
I think Labour will, with 16-1 on. I think Labour will win. We've got the best.
But if they fail to win, would it be the end of your leader?
I don't think that sort of question even comes into it these days. By-elections are about the towns and places they represent. Yeah.
Do you know why would people go out in Oldham and vote Labour anyway? I mean, in the past 3 years, crime has gone up by 30% in Oldham. You know, it has the highest net immigration than anywhere else in the north of England. So why on earth would people go out and vote Labour? It's like Einstein's theory of insanity.
Presumably good people
why would they go out and vote for a party that has one MP, can't get in power and can't change any of that?
Well, hang on. They will go out and they will vote for change. We are the new boys in British politics. Don't forget, we're only 22 years old, you know, and we are changing British politics. Which, you know,
seems a lifetime.
You're the new folks who your leader resigns and then somehow manages not to resign. I mean, it's not different politics.
Labour wants to abolish the monarchy, give the Falklands back to Argentina, and says nice things about the IRA and Hezbollah.
Come on, let's get back to reality.
I think he actually calls them the Malvinas, not the Falklands.
Hold on. You're not being very Jeremy Carr-like.
Yeah,
you're being
we need to break his arm. Come on, Rob.
Well, I'm just trying to get a word in edgeways, really. But so, your prediction?
I think it's likely that the Labour Party will do quite well, but I know that the Conservatives will be challenging them every step of the way, and I hope James has a fantastic result.
All right, well, gentlemen, thank you.
Can we have our predictions?
No, I've run out of time now.
I made a prediction for
you spoke for too long, so that's it for tonight. They've finally gone quiet. We are back in 3 weeks' time. Make a note of it on the 10th of December. Put that date in your diary. Thank you for watching. From all of us on Party People, good night.